and I'm joined now by Liberal Senator Dave Sharma. Dave, great to see you. Now, while we've been on air tonight, there was another debate between Peter Dutton and Anthony Albanese on Channel 9. I obviously didn't watch it, but I'm told that it was such a dull and boring debate, but that this was one of the key moments when Albanese was pressed on the preference deal with the Greens. Have a look.
Will you do a deal with minority parties, Prime Minister?
No.
Mr Dutton?
Not with the Greens, but with independents. And that's not a truthful answer from the Prime Minister there.
Yes, it is.
It's not. The Labor Party will fall over themselves to do a deal with the Greens. That's the reality.
It's just
you preference them. They preference
an untruth put forward by Peter.
Dave Sharma, the reality is, of course, Albanese would do a deal with the Greens if there's a hung parliament, and we'll have a radical Green-left government.
Of course he would, just as Julia Gillard did in 2010. And I would point out that Anthony Albanese is doing deals with the Greens in nearly every seat around the country right now, preference deals. You've had people like Mark Dreyfus and Mike Freelander, senior members of the Australian Jewish community who've been pleaded with by leaders in the Australian Jewish community not to preference the Greens, but they've gone ahead and done it anyway, and that's at Labor headquarters' direction and instigation.
I mean, another moment tonight that's been reported is that Anthony Albanese was accused by Peter Dutton. Dutton said to him, you can't lie straight in bed. So really went for him about this lying that Albanese keeps being untruthful in the campaign. I heard Andrew Clennell on air earlier tonight, and that was even something that he was frustrated about because, you know, this can't become a feature of campaigns moving forward. What do you think about this?
Well, I think Peter Dutton was right to call this out. I mean, you know, I found it incredibly frustrating during one of the first debates, and Anthony Albanese repeated this tonight, his claims that the previous coalition government cut health and education. No, the previous coalition government didn't increase at the rate of spending that Labor hoped it would be increased at. But a dollar amount that is increasing year on year, as Peter Dutton pointed out, is not a cut in anyone's terms and terminology. But Anthony Albanese repeats that. You know, they repeat the Mediscare lie. You know, it seems like they have no record to run on because the only thing they can the only thing they're trying to campaign on is, you know, a fear of Peter Dutton and the Liberals. But you'd think a first-term government would have some records to point to, some achievements they could offer up to the electorate, some prospect of what they might do better in the next term. But there is none of this from Anthony Albanese. I mean, the record is terrible and he has no vision for the next 3 years.
Now, you were, of course, the Liberal MP in Wentworth in Sydney's East, which you lost at the last election to the Teal Allegra Spender, and now, of course, you're a Liberal senator. You must be following the Wentworth contest closely. How do you see it going at the moment between Spender and Ronox, the Liberal candidate?
Well, a couple of things. Look, firstly, the Teal's an associated group, so like, you know, Climate 200 and the Smart Energy Council and Dan Illick and others are spending a fortune here. And that's clearly, you know, that's a repeat of 2022. One thing I've noticed, though, is that the Teal candidates across the country seem to be quite happily flouting laws, whether it's tearing down their opposition's campaign materials, whether it's putting up their own campaign materials on Ausgrid property, which is, you know, illegal or at least unauthorised. They seem to take the view that the laws don't apply to them, which suggests to me that they are worried because they're throwing the kitchen sink at this. They've thrown out the rule book. And I think they know that they don't have a record to run on. You know, they were elected with this great hope that they would do politics differently. Instead, they've turned out to be some of the most cynical operatives and they've achieved nothing in the parliament.
I mean, I don't think many people would argue with you about that, but just specifically how you think Wentworth is going at the moment and whether it is winnable for the Liberals at this election.
I think it's absolutely winnable. I think we've got a strong candidate in Ronox who's been working hard to get to know the community or introduce herself as a political candidate to the community. I think parts of this electorate are very unhappy with the Albanese government, the Jewish community, because of this government's demonisation of Israel and its failure to combat anti-Semitism, but also many people who are dealing with high interest rates, inflation, all those sorts of things.
Cost of living's an issue everywhere. All right, Dave Sharma, we're out of time. So great to see you again.